And I'm delighted to say we've got Andy Mitten on Skype, not from his the plush surrounds of his beautiful library, but from Bodo, I think is the correct place. Is the correct pronunciation, Andy, is it?
Yeah, I'm at Bodo in the Arctic Circle at the north of Norway, and I'm about to fly to Oslo and then to London and then take a train up to Manchester for the big game tonight. And I love listening to Roy Keane there saying it was a must-win game. I sense that it is for Manchester United as well tonight. Unfortunately, the current United team isn't a patch on the one which Roy played in.
Big game is almost sounds like a stretch already, doesn't it? It's kind of like, this is a game that may or may not have bearing on the top four this season.
Yeah, it seems like every game is a must-win for Manchester United at the moment, and I felt the Leicester game a couple of weeks ago and the game they scraped through. Leicester probably deserved to draw, but United got the win, but it's been pretty poor since then. United struggled to beat Astana, struggled to beat Rochdale on penalties. That's third division Rochdale, and were well beaten at West Ham, and it's not good enough. And the mood has dropped significantly. There are big divisions among the fans as to what the way forward is. I've written 2 or 3 supportive pieces of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer saying that the fans have got to be patient, that he should be given time, and I genuinely believe that. I do believe that he's got a plan. However, there are big doubts, and fans are quite right to have those doubts. I think United have scored 17 goals in 18 games. Come on, this is Manchester United. Roy Keane will be absolutely appalled by this and hasn't been shy to offer his opinion. But it's easy offering opinions when you're distanced from it or when you're not part of it, and I include that myself in that. What would Manchester United do? It's okay, people saying Ole Gunnar is not the man cut out to be a Manchester United manager. They can't keep sacking managers every 18 months and bringing somebody else in who comes with his own ideas and his own plans about which players he brings in, while all the time Manchester United fall further and further away. And then there's dissent against Ed Woodward because he's overseen much of the failure of the past 6 years since Sir Alex Ferguson stepped down and made appointments which haven't worked out as he or any Manchester United fan would have hoped. And then that continues towards an ill feeling against the Glazers. The Glazers will never be popular. They oversaw a takeover which should never have allowed to have been passed by the regulatory authorities. But as we speak today, Manchester United have the second highest wage bill in world football. So the players are failing here. They've spent big, and Ole Gunnar, of course, is partly culpable for what's going on. But he wasn't responsible for Paul Pogba missing a sitter against Rochdale, or missing penalties against Wolves, or the penalty missed against Crystal Palace. And he's been unlucky. The team have got a lot of injuries, and when I look at the fixtures coming up, it's pretty daunting now. United have not won away since that great night in Paris in March. They've got 4 away games on the bounce in October. That's after playing Arsenal tonight at home and a small matter of Liverpool at home in a few weeks.
Okay, I didn't realise they had 4 away games in a row, so they've got to dig in and somehow learn to win any of those games so that they can kind of keep the race for 4th ticking over. Tonight is a huge game because a victory would move them up to 11 points, and there's a massive glut of teams on 11 points at the minute, including Arsenal and Spurs. So you wouldn't have lost any significant ground. You would hope that you're coming through the worst period of your injury crisis. That begins to abate and some form kicks in. But defeat, on the other hand, will suddenly leave them 6 points behind Arsenal, and it just puts that stink that you've been talking about, it just brings that back to a point where it's difficult to ignore.
Yeah, that's all fair comment. And this is the joint worst start to the league season, only comparable with David Moyes and Louis van Gaal's first season after 6 games. But what happened after 6 games with Moyes is that he won 4 and drew 1 of his next 5 matches. What happened after 6 or 7 games with Van Gaal is he won 7, drew 2 and lost 1 of his next 10 matches. They got back into contention. This looks pretty difficult for this United side with so many injuries to do. One of the points you mentioned was about the other teams. They're also failing. There's City and Liverpool which obviously delights Manchester United fans doing so well. And then there's the rest, Chelsea and Arsenal, Tottenham, they're all dropping points. So if United can get a run together, which is going to be exceptionally difficult, then they can be pushing for fourth. And I think fourth should be a realistic aim for this season. It is Manchester United. Clearly there's got to be a patience there. There's young players coming through, and if I'm going to stick up for Ollie in other ways, the three players he's brought in, they have started okay. The defence, I think, is the third best in the Premier League, and these are small mercies because Manchester United shouldn't be where they are in the table. But and I keep writing this, he can build for the long term, and he'll get support for his ideas, for bringing young attacking players through, for playing on the front foot. I think that's great. I think Ollie's great. I think he's a good person. I'd love him to be a success, but you've got to get results in the short term.
It's interesting you mentioned the defence there. There's a really interesting piece, Andy, in the Racing Post today, where Mark Langdon, who's a very good authority, obviously, on football in Europe, he speaks about the expected goals against of their 6 games. They've played 6 games so far, and West Ham 0.51, Leicester 0.46, Southampton 0.77, Crystal Palace 0.68, Wolves 0.31, Chelsea 1.1, and that's essentially the expected goals and the chances that you leak. So defensively, Maguire and Wan-Bissaka have made a huge difference. Yeah,
and if you just heard that roar, this one now, it's an F-15 fighter going past. I'm in the Arctic Circle, and it's one of the big NATO air bases, so I do apologise if that's very noisy, but I've never done an interview before as warplanes have shot past me as I'm discussing Manchester United's defence, and if they come past again, at least you know what it is.
Maybe you're like that sports journalist where you finally feel like you're a real journalist, where you're actually, you're reporting on a war or something that matters.
I went to Sinaloa to see Maradona earlier this year. Trust me, that felt like real journalism. Being told not to go there. And I went undercover with Lazio's Ultras at the start of this month after their leader had just been shot dead. That was heavy. It really was. And talking about expected goals conceded from Manchester United is very easy compared to turning up at 1 o'clock in the morning to meet the leaders of Lazio's Ultras who don't like journalists. But the defence has been better. It's good that David De Gea has signed a contract. I think he's a decent player, notwithstanding his mistakes this year. And one of the goalkeeping coaches just moved on. Luke Shaw's not the best left back in the world. He's got to get over another injury. Lindelof is not Van Dijk, but there could be good potential between him and Maguire. I like the look of Tuanzebe. And Bissaka, I think, is just going to get better and better. The problem is more in front, and Pogba's very, very skillful, but he's problematic in other ways. Andreas Pereira, I'd love it to work for him. He's a really nice lad. I've written about him since he's been a young lad. But when I watch him, do I think this guy's got enough to play long-term for Manchester United? No. I have serious misgivings about that. Fred, £52 million footballer. Really nice guy. But some of my mates are nice guys, you're nice guys. I don't want you in the middle of midfield for Manchester United. And they've got to take the chances, and they've got to improve. And little snippets of positivity are not enough. Coming on for the last 20 minutes and doing okay against Astana. You've got to be doing this against Liverpool and Arsenal. It's Manchester United. This isn't a team with middling ambitions. It's one of the 3 biggest football clubs in the world. Now, I get that there's a time now where they're clearly in transition. It's going to take time, and I think fans will be patient. Certainly at games, there's a very different feeling to the roar that you hear online and the knee-jerk reaction. And when I wrote pieces sticking up for Ole Gunnar last week, and Gary Neville amplifies that by retweeting my articles, you get this fury and this rage from fans who. Some of them will probably change their manager every time Manchester United drop points. And that doesn't create a mood of stability around the club either, because football teams do lose matches. Then again, they're entitled to their opinion, and United shouldn't be so far off after so few games.
You mentioned the other night the fixtures coming up. Things go particularly badly the next month. Could he be gone?
those 4 away matches and then drawing Chelsea away in the League Cup, I just think this guy needs a bit of luck here. I don't think he will be gone. I really, genuinely think, I know that the intention is to stick with him, even to stick with him through some tough periods, but there's got to be minimum demands as well. You couldn't lose all of those matches. You've got to be getting some results, and he has got some results so far. But it's very finely balanced at the moment. It's balanced between, had they won at West Ham, I think United would have gone third, and that would be acceptable. But when they lose and they play so poorly and there's so few chances created and the team are not scoring enough, the cloud returns. And Manchester United is a much bigger story than West Ham winning.
Yeah.
But West Ham are now getting watched by 60,000 people. The rivals are much stronger now. United used to go to Tottenham and buy Sheringham, Berbatov, Carrick. They can't do that now. Or if they're going to do it and go to Leicester and take Maguire, they've got to pay a world record transfer fee. So I'm not making excuses for Manchester United, but when Roy Keane was playing in his pomp for these great teams, Arsenal were the main rivals. Manchester City didn't have their billions. Chelsea didn't either. So it is tougher now.
It definitely is tougher. The Athletic are this morning reporting that Man United are going to go back in for Mandzukic, which would make sense. It's of a piece with the rest of the stories in the papers today, where Solskjaer said that they need a striker. We've let 2 go. It's clear that our next target will be a striker. Do you think Mandzukic is the right fit? Is there anybody else that you would like them to get at Christmas?
Well, Mandzukic was definitely someone who interested. I checked out the story when Dybala was being linked, but United seemed quite cool on it, and I'm not sure why they were quite cool on it. He's a hard, experienced striker, and would you want him right now in your team? Yes, you would, but could you have seen the injuries to the forward players at the time? No, you couldn't, but this team looks like they were going to have real difficulties if they got injuries, and they've got him. Well, there's Messi. I think he'd do a decent job if you put him up front for Manchester United. But it's being serious. There's top players, young players being scouted all the time, and this is admirable. Bringing in young players. I think James Maddison is not an out-and-out striker, but he's a creative player. He's a Manchester United fan. He'd love to play for Manchester United. They really missed a Maddison at West Ham last week. There was nobody there to create, and it's all right blaming the strikers for the lack of goals. They need to feed off chances, and they weren't really coming. That said, they missed some sitters as well.
Okay, Andy, we'll let you go. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Thank you.